following material is copyright 2021 by Higher Alignment and Alignment Technologies. All reproduction and distribution are strictly prohibited without prior written consent. For more information, please contact us at higheralignment.com. Welcome to Higher Alignment and tonight's free intro discussion to our 12-week class series, Inside Out Common Neutral Ground. Tonight we'll be discussing frictionless CNG or common neutral ground relationships, clarifying and healing our reactiveness, with Larry Byram, Tom Fagiano, and Sandy Jakewith.
Okay, everyone. I want to start by just saying tonight that common neutral ground is a concept that I've been working with now for about 25 years. And the idea of it is that we create a separate space for the relationship so that we're not reacting to the relationship from a personal space. And the relationship space is, I want to say, has its own integrity, and therefore you can feel if there's issues with the other person that way and not necessarily issues with you. So there's a difference between a conflict, that you have internally and that is represented by the relationship. Now, they can overlap. If you have a problem and you project it on your partner and your partner reacts to it, then yes, you'll have both dimensions of reaction involved. But what we want to do is a common ground is really an opportunity to have more ease and create a flow and joy in the way we interact with people. It's our way of managing our own space, time, and energy so that how we're interacting is smooth and frictionless and very easy. And so you get this, you heard this from many people, that relationships are work. And why they talk about relationships being work is that they're always dealing with the unknowns, and they're not understanding what's really going on with the partner or with themselves and how they're naturally, either making progress or not. So, and they're struggling with that. And that is the cause of all the work you, quote, have to do in relationships. Now, if you want to be more conscious and take responsibility for your own lessons and allow the other person to take responsibility for their lessons, then you can have a really frictionless, easy relationship, because you can decide what is an appropriate lesson together and deal with those things without taking on all of their business and all your business and trying to make that work together. So there's no real work in it. Now, there is you being conscious about it. That is the real work in a conscious relationship, is being aware of what's going on so that you don't step over the line or deal with things in a way that is going to come back and rebound on you. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, is how do we create more frictionless relationships, and what are the three types of friction that we experience in relationships on a common level that most people feel is the work. Questions about that? Anybody have any questions? Okay.
Are you going to talk at some point about common lessons and how to determine those and navigate those in this class?
I wasn't planning to.
Okay.
I have enough things to do without getting into that. I've covered that pretty well in several other classes. So this class is mostly about the technology of neutralizing attachments, positions, and projections. If you think about the whole thing, those are the three sources of reactions that we have. And if you recognize them, then you don't have to step right into them and get caught. And you could be with people without taking on their stuff. And you won't personalize them then. How many people know what I'm talking about by personalizing people? Everybody know? Yeah. So we're trying to have more fun relationships. I know that is not everybody's goal. Having relationships that are easy and fun, well, start wondering, what do you do in a relationship? And what I'll suggest is that you would actually be creative in one. You know, you could be doing projects together and developing clearer and deeper bonds in a trusting way. That would be a useful thing to do in relationships. But like I said, some people like their pain, and we won't try to take your pain away from you. If you want your pain, I'll show you how to get the maximum dosage you need at any particular time. Okay? Okay, great. Moving ahead. We have a little convention that we try to put the first names and your creative energies. And so if anybody doesn't have your creative energies, you can talk to me at the break as well. And we'll try to make sure that you are identifying that. In this case, my name's Larry, and I'm a 735, or when that says storyteller is the 7, the 3 is the implementer, and the 5 is the investigator. And everybody has 3 different intelligences in that particular sequence. Moving ahead, let's talk about tonight. Sandy?
How do we manifest creatively open, frictionless relationships? Unbalanced, repressed sensations, feelings, emotions, and thoughts create conflict in our relationships because we overdo, underdo, or assert ourselves in both directions in reaction to our past.
So it's our patterns that we've adopted that create conflict a lot of times with other people's patterns that they've adopted growing up. Now, even if we have similarities in patterns, it doesn't mean that we're immune to each other's stuff. In fact, it means that a lot of times we become identified with their stuff and it amplifies our own stuff. So what we're trying to do with the common ground is separate out my personal stuff from your personal stuff, and then also acknowledge that the relationship itself has its own energetic interplay that we want to be able to observe and quantify as we move through it. Okay.
This creates friction, upsets, and fallout, even if it is not intentional. Without realizing our reactiveness, we assert or hide attachments, positions, and projections, reinforcing personality conflicts. Common neutral ground affirms our creativity and abundance, thereby neutralizing these imbalances by managing our energy, time, and space.
You know, we do that by being a creative being, and a creative being is open to expressing itself when we realize that we need not only energy for ourselves, but we need energy to share with others. We need time, not just time for our own stuff, but we need time to interrelate to others. And if we're holding our own space, which is great, we also need to hold space for others to be where they are. Now, if you notice, that means that the energy, time, and space have to be in an abundant relationship to ourselves. We need to have space to connect to ourselves. And one of the things that Tom was bringing out earlier in our discussion is that means we really have to be able to create a common ground with ourselves. If we create a common ground with ourselves and we recognize where we're caught, then we would give ourselves room, or we'd acknowledge the possibility that we are in a healing process or learning a lesson. Then we could actually put things into order and not take on everybody else's reactions when we get reactive. In other words, if we're filled up dealing with our own reactions, we have no room, we have no time, we have no space and no energy to deal with other people. Does that make sense? So if we're transpersonal social beings, we have to be able to connect up to them and have a separate space for the energy, a separate space for time, and a separate by the way, the separate space of time, the separate quality of time is we have to have time for them to be able to have a conversation. You ever had a person who's very impatient with you? Isn't that creating a challenge with you? If they're very impatient, that means they have no time and they're not giving you any time to respond to them. And therefore, what can you do? I always turn to them and say, well, until you have enough time to take this in, I don't think we need to talk. And boy, that really puts them in a little bit of a crisis because they don't know what to do in that situation. I said, yeah, what you're saying right now is that you have a prescribed way of doing this and you don't want any interaction with me and you don't want to give time for a discussion here. So let's just acknowledge that and move on. Now, if they were really not wanting to connect with me and not wanting to have any input with me, that could work for them. But then they're not going to get any of the opportunities because I'm not going to define myself in terms of what they need if they can't tell me what that is and why we're doing it. So you see there's losses in relationship because we're not acknowledging time in ourselves or not acknowledging time with others. Now, I'm just using it as an example, but also the same thing with space. A lot of people around this work talk about, oh, I'm just going to give that person some space. Now, what are they really saying is they're not going to interject themselves onto that person or try to tell that person what to do. They're going to invite that person to just and acknowledge them and say, you know, whatever you want to say, please share what that is. And we'll see if we can work through that. And if we can't, we'll wait until there's a time when you can. And that's what giving people space really is. Now, around the energy thing, if we don't have energy for ourselves, how can we have energy for others? We're just going to run over them. We're just not going to even pay attention to them. We're not going to even listen to them. So you have to have some energy in the relationship to be able to make a common ground work. Otherwise, don't do a common ground. You don't have to do a common ground. You can go roughshod through relationships and just connect to the person in terms of their pretenses, defenses, and conditioning. You can just use those three things and get a lot of negative stuff happening, the attachments, the positions, and the projections will be whipsawing back and forth between the two of you. And it will be a full-out fight, and you won't even know what to do. And you don't even know that it's happening half the time because it's so unconscious. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's sort of like you're having an all-out fight over your own space because you're holding yourself in and saying, oh, I don't want to react to this. Oh, I don't want to react to that. Oh, I don't want to do that to them. I don't want to make them wrong. I'm afraid to hurt their feelings. How many people know what I'm talking about? So what you're doing is you're deflecting it back to yourself. You're just basically building yourself up because you're in conflict with yourself because you can't share yourself. So I'm going to say to you, it's better to tell your truth, but to make sure your truth is clear. So you can say, look, I don't have space now to respond to you. I don't have space to respond to you. I don't have the energy to respond to you right now. And I would like to. What could we do? When could we schedule it? That would be a whole different thing. Then rather just duke it out and then whoever is left standing wins. You know, that's kind of the program most people operate by. How many people can recognize that you don't get what you want in a lot of communications with people? If you're fighting yourself in communications, you really need a common ground. If you don't have a common ground, you can't flow with them. You can't work with them. You can't get anywhere with them because they're in complete reaction to you as much as you're in reaction to them. When both people are in reaction, there's no space, there's no time, there's no energy to do anything. You're just enmeshed. And that's the worst case scenario, really. Of course, you could always just ignore each other completely. I guess that's the other side of it. You can be completely isolated and alone and lonely because no one is ever going to talk to you. or you can be completely enmeshed. In both those cases, they're extremes where common ground would solve the problem.
And extremes you don't like.
Yes, extremes that are painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Larry, as you talk about this, I think about how, we hold ourselves back and we're hurting ourselves. And just as you were describing that, and I think about a friend of mine who is just really good at taking positions and picking fights. And I would do my best to just, stay neutral and keep it, keep myself from reacting to it. And we had friends we played cards with, and I would last about 10 minutes. They would sit and look at their watches to see how long I could last. And all of a sudden I'd go, no, that's just not true. And there we'd go off in, just this argument phase. And so being able to use common neutral ground to not get into that reactiveness has really been helpful.
Yeah. I always like to say it's in their universe, what they're saying is true to them. In your universe, it may not be true. It's okay. But it's not your job to define their universe. It's not your business to mess with their stuff. They can choose to engage you and be neutral with you if you're giving them space to do that. And you could probably get some agreements happening, even if you don't agree about much, just by having the space to listen to them and hear what they need and supporting them in a minimal interaction. And most of them, that's all they ever want. They don't even want anything more than that. Okay.
Right. But, the other side of what you're saying is, as in I can't define their space. If I don't use a common neutral ground, they're defining my space. And that's where that intrusive feeling comes in, that you can use common neutral ground so that you don't feel that someone's intruding upon you and trying to define you.
Yes, there's so many reasons right now. We're going to talk about it. There's so many reasons right now why there is an unconscious need to control others when we haven't been seeing ourselves, or when we're not seeing ourselves. And this whole drive to be important is a natural development process in our personality development system. But we need to learn the limitations of it. You reach a certain point and it's counterproductive to everything you want. So it's a question of, are you going to grow up, or do you want to still be a kid? Because a lot of us are still doing kid behaviors without realizing it. Okay. Or we'll just say they're slightly less mature responses to possibilities. Okay.
Larry, Kachina had her unmuted herself a while back. Do you still have a question, Kachina, or are you good?
I'm good. Actually, he answered the question. If I just listened.
Okay, great.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the space you're holding. Okay, so you see how that is? That's what we're doing here. We're hopefully interacting. And that's why I love comments from people, because then I can calibrate to where the conversation is for the people involved, rather than just my conversation with myself. I end up having conversations with myself a lot more than I need to. It would be nice to have conversations with other people. Okay, moving on. So Sandy?
All we need to do is create this connection to ourselves and then invite others.
So when we create a connection to ourselves, we start by having a sense of, oh, I need to take care of my autonomy. Well, my autonomy is what? The energy, time, and space. My integrity is all three levels, really. That's my autonomy. So I have to separate my own stuff and my own space and hold my space here before I can even deal with out there. If I deal with myself and then I look what I have left over in abundant, then that abundance then can be applied to connecting with others. And connecting with others then could be a joy, because I'm not pushed to do anything. I'm not pushed to prove anything in that situation. I'm just available. I'm peaceful, present on myself. I'm enjoying my life, and other people can interact with that. Okay. Anybody have questions? Okay.
Common neutral ground is an interactive system, creating connections between individuals. Energy, time, and space are the underlying reality behind all relationship interactions. When we connect with people, we use life intent, a combination of sensations and feelings. Light, truth, or wisdom, emotions and thoughts, and love or space, feelings and emotions, are required to fully connect.
So there are three levels there. That's what I'm really saying. There's three levels to have a complete connection with people.
Our creative life expression is enhanced by having a clear purpose. Lacking this, chaos, conflict, and confusion reign.
Some people feel they're victims, or the world is a random thing because they don't bring order to their life. Notice what I just said, because they don't bring order to their life. We have order within us naturally. Our bodies organize ourselves. Our minds organize ourselves. Our heart organizes ourselves. All these things are support systems that we bring order to things. That's because we're a conscious creative system. We're naturally organizing possibilities around us. Now, if we deny that we have life, light, and love, if we deny that we have no intent, no content, no context, then we're basically incapacitating ourselves. So we don't honor order. So we invite chaos into our life, and then we're victims of it. Not particularly fun. Because then we're defining ourselves as just reactionary beings. And every time people hurt us, we say, ouch, that's painful, but doesn't keep people from keep poking us. So that's what we're trying to recognize, that we want to be able to respond appropriately to our world. Common neutral ground is an organizational structure for appropriately responding to others in a way that gets us more integrated with universal intent, with universal content, with universal context. Okay.
Our wisdom combines our intelligences, so we grow by understanding differences and similarities. As our inner truth is revealed in time and in this moment, we can share our light with others if they are open and participate. We confirm this connection by creating space with each other, manifesting mutual respect, esteem, and love. Love is the recognition that we are each seeking effective ways to align and interconnect. A common neutral
So
ground.
by the way, and we connect through our creativity, and by affirming our creativity, we have the possibility of having alignment with other people to some degree. Now, some degree are more aligned, some people are more creatively aligned than others. But even if we recognize what their creative capacity is, like I see other people and their creative nature, well, then I know how to align with that as well. So now I'm empowered to be creatively interacting with people. If more people were doing that, we would have a better world. That's what we're working toward, is having a better world where people line up and they can see how they fit in the world and how they're a part of it, not how we're all isolated and segmented into all these different little classifications and self-identities. It's really, that's just chaos. That's really conflict. Just going to promote all the things that we've been talking about. So it's the conscious individuals that are going to bring order to the world. And the more conscious we are, the more we can do that. Okay.
Larry,
Yeah.
I was thinking that, or what's coming to mind for me is when you have that consciousness, you're more able to recognize your kin. You know, you're more able to recognize that right relationship, that, you know, it's an ongoing thread.
Yes. So that's because when we're in a state of creative flow, we create a ping. It's like we're bats with echolocation. We ping people around us, and there are certain responses that other people have to us, and they see what we're doing, and they either go, I'm in, or that's not my thing, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that see us and get us and move with us. And there's other people that won't do that. And that's okay, because they have their own things. We want them to have their own things and find their own tribe. If you look at it, we have 7 main tribes. They're all based around your creative expressions. Now, there's interaction between those tribes, a lot of interaction between those tribes. But there comes a lot of judgment between that, because we don't have enough acceptance of ourselves to see beyond the judgment. If we loved ourselves and our primary creative expression, we'd be happy to see the beauty, truth, and goodness of everyone. Wouldn't that be fabulous? That's what a common ground provides you, being able to see the beauty, truth, and goodness of everyone. Okay. Sandy?
A common neutral ground facilitates frictionless interactions.
Yeah. So I've gotten on this word frictionless because we're used to friction. We're really used to friction. We're used to resistance. We're used to competition. We're used to fighting. We're used to enmeshment. Isn't that crazy that we're living in a world with those things as our primary methodology for expectations in relationship? My God, why are we spending all our time doing those things that don't work for us? These don't work for us. They have never worked for us. Okay. Go ahead.
We need to own and honor our energy, time, and space. Affirming our life, light, and love expressions regenerates energy. Creating a common neutral ground focuses energy in a separate relationship space, so we do not compromise our personal space.
Yeah, so if I'm having a relationship with someone and it's in a common space, that's our relationship space. And you know what? I can decide how much of that space and to what degree I meet the other person and support the other person meeting me. But that doesn't mean that I have to do the same thing with other people. I may have a different type of alignment with another person and be willing to do a different thing. One of the things that people have to get out of it is this idea that because we have a common ground, it's some kind of standardized thing. It is not a standardized thing. Each common ground is unique. Each common ground has its own process. So all you inventors out there, realize this is your thing. This is your game. It's all about giving you space to be unique with each person. That includes you, Patrick. Okay. Okay.
It's funny you said that, because I was thinking how I feel like a different person with each person.
Yes, you do. And it's either for some situations it's really bad, and some other situations it's really good. And we're trying to work on, well, how do we eliminate all those bad connections? Well, we eliminate all those bad connections by not being reactive or taking it personally that those people are hurting us or denying us or discounting us. It's not their intention to do that. Let's just give them a clean slate. Let's just not take all that stuff on. Let's not deal with that. If they can't respond in a uplifted way, then our choice could be, oh, we're moving on to the next person.
Well, that was what I was going to say is, are you saying move on to a different person? Or are you saying there's a way to be with that person?
Well, both. I'm actually saying both, because one, we can just be non-reactive to them. But the question is, what is the value of not being able to express everything about you with the person because they're not ready to hear what you're about? There are a lot of people I know that would not be interested in really my conversations on a regular basis. And guess what? It's
just call me.
it's normal. It's very normal. So what I'm saying is that I need to balance out what taking care of some people in relationship by doing a common ground, especially when it's difficult. So let's say you had a parent that was always seen you as a child and was always hurtful, bringing up the old patterns and looking at you. 20 years ago, I really had a confrontation with my stepfather, or more now. I had a confrontation with my stepfather, and guess what? I said some straight out things that I said, look at, you have assumptions about how I'm less that are causing us conflict. And if you don't let go of those assumptions, I can't be your friend. I can't even really affirm and love you for who you are very well, because it's always every interaction with you is coming from a set perspective. So if you don't want me to be in a relationship with you, then this is a good thing for you. But if you want me to be in a better relationship, you're going to have to hold those perspectives in your own space rather than project them into mine, rather than constantly be pushing them on me. And if you can't do it, I'll tell you it's not working for me, and I'll leave. So you see, sometimes you have family members you have to deal with. You use the common ground to keep from making it personal. You just keep it easy. You keep it normal. You try to keep it as light as possible, and you don't take on their lesson. And the big issue is most of the time we think we have to help them. We think we have to fix them. We have to try. No, stop. It's not your job. They have their right to have their own truth, their own way of looking. By the way, it wouldn't even be a truth to me, but it's their truth, the best that they know how. And we should just honor that. Okay. Now that's one way we do it. The second way we deal with it is we look for people that have more responsiveness, that can grow with us, that can move with us, that can dance with us, that can play with us, that can be creative with us. Why? Because they get us, they see us, they play with, they respond to us. And that's what we want. We want more relationships that have depth, we could say anything, which would be great. Do we have a lot of those? Probably not enough. That's what we're looking for. The purpose of you learning common ground skills is so you have as many as you wish. You're not limited. Okay. Sandy?
I believe we finished this, Larry.
By the way, thank you for the question, Patrick. Okay, go ahead.
We finished this.
Okay. So I just want to show you metaphorically that we each have our own spaces, our own energy, and our own time. And if we were just solitary beings, that would be great. It would be totally great. Just take care of ourselves. Go around. If we bump into somebody, we bounce off and go some other way. And it would be like living in a what is that? A rink. Remember the cars.
A roller skating rink?
No, the cars that bounce off each other.
Oh, bumper cars.
Bumper cars. Yes, it'd be like a bumper car, and that would be the whole program. You just go around, and some people like hitting each other repeatedly, and other people say, no, let's be a little nice, let's be supportive. And you can see which are the jerks and which are not the jerks, and you can decide from that how to respond to them. But the whole point is to create a unique space in the middle where we place the things we want to share with the partner in that space. Things that we love about ourselves. Things that are abundant within us. Skills we could support other people in. learnings and lessons that they may relate to, but we don't know, and that we would relate to because it helps us be who we are, define who we are. That's the common middle ground. And it says creating a separate relationship space to distinguish our personal from relationship experiences, or in another way, our personal experience from our transpersonal experience. You know, when we grow up into a transpersonal world, we need to own our boundaries. That means owning our autonomy. That means owning our life energy, owning our time, or you can also say our knowing, and in a more open way, or our space, or you could also call that our ability to love other people. Now, there are many people out there that have different levels of capability in responding to us. And we may not have all their capabilities in showing up with us. We may not have all the capabilities that they have. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we get to explore that. We get to interact. We get to see where we line up. We get to see what degree that allows us to move forward together. That's what we're doing. Okay.
What is friction? Compromised or incomplete intentions. There are 3 types of friction. 1, attachments based in a lack of life energy, integrity, or denial of beauty. 2, positions based in an attempt to impose our one-sided truth upon others, lacking understanding, wisdom, or the ability to be present in this moment.
By the way, you'll notice these definitions got longer and longer. It's because they get more complex each level. And the other thing too, I just want to say, wisdom or the ability to be present in the moment. If we're in truth, we have to be present in this moment. The problem with time is if we're in any other perception of time, we're not going to line up with other people. The only place we can effectively line up is in the moment. We can recreate a past situation in this moment, but we have to be in the moment to be able to respond to people. If we're not in that moment to respond to people, we're just in our head and we're just bumping, your bumper cars just keep, knocking each other over the head until the other person gives up or goes home. Anybody been there? You don't get anywhere. So that's the problem with that one. So go ahead now to the third one.
Or 3, projections, an inability to recognize our natural goodness, preventing us from accepting our weaknesses and driving us to live in a false world of comparisons, where idealization overwhelms grace, humility, and simplicity.
So you see, that's a massive definition there. A lot of layers in that.
Good that you warned us.
I did. And I just want to say, projections are the most difficult because there are layers of it. There's layers of assumptions that we make about who other people are, and they may agree with our projections or disagree. And they feel the irritation, especially when they disagree with our assumptions, but there may be false projections we're putting on them that they want. And so they're trying to measure the relative degree of, our influence versus their influence. So they're trying to say, who is more important, them or us? We're doing that calibration, and that's what projections are all about. Projections are mainly either putting people down or putting people up. Idealizing people by saying, oh, I'm better. Well, actually, you could probably start with, you're so much better than me. That's a common one. When we have our heroes and we say, okay, you're so much better than me. And of course, you also have situations where people idolize themselves. Oh, I'm so much better than them. They should be kissing my feet. I'm entitled. Believe me, I'm entitled. I believe I deserve all this. I'm special. You know, that's all the kind of idealization, self-importance crap that you might want in a world. Now, if you have more of those kind of experiences, that means you're caught in that level, that third level, the projection level. And it also means that you're struggling to be seen because you are coming from the premise that you're not being fully yourself. And it may be true that you haven't revealed all your creativity, or you don't even know all your creativity. And so that's what's inspiring it. But really all the personality can do is give people more bullshit and try to control, manipulate them better, and try to influence them more. Now, that is not helpful. That's a contrary thing. It actually pushes people away. In fact, if you look at these frictions, why do people leave relationships with people? Because these frictions become too much. We are worn down to a point where we have no capacity to take it anymore. Anybody know what I'm talking about? The contempt level gets to a certain level. It just feels so irritating when they do the same thing over and over and over again. And we want to scream. And that's when we break up, hopefully before then, but at least at that point, we're forced to do something. Okay. Go ahead.
Attachments divert life energy from internal to external focus, resulting in self-serving excitement, objectification, and greed, affirming possessiveness.
Possessiveness is the giveaway there. If people are possessive, it means that they're more attached to outer appearances than their inner nature. And that means they're always trying to look good in a physical way. And they're always trying to be youthful, and they're always trying to be beautiful, you know, or handsome. You know, that kind of obsessive cosmetic surgery driven process, that whole thing is that first level. And by the way, the more they do that stuff, the less they're in touch with their own energy, and the less they're managing their own energy. So they're more at the effect of the world. So their pursuit of safety is actually the pursuit of death. Isn't that great? So because you will die faster by pursuing attachments, external attachments. Isn't that great to know? You know, people get what they ask for. In this case, if they believe that they're an outer object, then they get to visit the grave earlier. Okay.
So it's literally the opposite of aliveness.
Yeah, it is. It's the opposite of aliveness. Isn't that nice? Very, very appropriate. Okay.
Positions deny counter assertions, revealing a lack of inclusiveness, wisdom, and constructive intelligence. So
I was talking to Michael recently, and we got in a conversation, and I told him, in a response to what he was asking me, I said, well, you know, people that are in positions are not intelligent. And he said, I never heard that in the work. I said, well, yeah, it's pretty obvious because they're hooked on a one-sided point of view, and they have no capacity to embrace the opposite and see how they respond versus the opposite. So they can't even give you an opposite. They can't even embrace an opposite. They can't embrace paradox. They can't embrace a learning process even that they would take, that would go beyond a certain place. They have to make sure it keeps them stuck in the same place. Positions stick you in the same place. So you're always responding in one way. Now, I'm going to say that means that you don't learn anything new. So whatever you are at, you're always there and not moving forward. And so, you know, these people that are claiming how intelligent they are also the ones that are the least intelligent because they haven't grown up. Okay. And if you were growing up, you would learn to adapt to the world and learn with the world. and learn from the world. And you'd always start with the premise that, what do I not know here? Where am I going to go from here? That, you know, and you'd always be recalibrating to, well, what I know in the past may be true in the future, but I can't count on that because truth is determined in the present moment, never in the past. So I have to validate if this is the truth right now. The universe is changing. Every step, everything is changing about it. We're in a much different situation than we were 50 years ago. So the truth is different than it was 50 years ago. People keep thinking there's universal truth. We should just start with trying to go for some relative truth, you know, because that's what we need, some help. We're not getting smarter around here. We need to do some massive surgery here. Okay.
So Larry, when you're talking about truth being in the moment, I was thinking about the use of how we use our past experiences to form our ideas about truth, but we're really using experience to form ideas about wisdom. It
Well,
seems, right,
if
and
we
truth.
were constantly updating everything in our past to the current moment, if we were updating it, yes, that would be true. But most people don't do updating. They just accept the past as the given. Now, that means we're in beliefs about the past that don't conform to the truth now. And so here's the thing. When let's say I have a relationship with you and I learn new things about something. Now, I'm not going to force what I learn on you, but for my reality, those new things I've learned are part of the things that drive me now.
Mhm.
And so you're going to have to learn to respond to that, even if you don't agree with it in some way. Why? Because that's who I am now. And this is where we are right now. So like I said, everybody's changing. We just don't realize it. Okay.
Projections prevent deeper self-understanding, so our shadow side, personality, self-importance manifests.
That's the most tightly defined statement in the whole thing so far. Now, why is that? Because I only had that much room to totally handle that. I had to cram it into that exact space. And so the point is summarizing projections in that way is probably not complete, but it is the way to kind of start to get a taste of this. Now, what I also did on the other side here is I highlighted why things are the way they are in terms of our difficulties. Okay, Sandy.
Friction is inertia, competition, resistance, and pain.
Yeah.
It produces contraction and amplifies conflict. 1, irritation and inertia due to imprinting, conditioning, and intent compromise.
So that's all about attachments. It's the number one over on the writing relates to the number one here. So that's the summary of it. Okay.
Number 2, competition and intensity due to defenses and inability to deal with differences.
So by the way, if you look at any party with a defense, they can't deal with differences. If it doesn't fit their idea of how it is, it doesn't work for them.
Right, because it's not safe and secure.
It just doesn't matter. It doesn't match. They can't even take it in. They can't even comprehend it. That's why I'm saying they're not actually being very secure in they think they're doing it for security because they're choosing people that are the opposite to them, and it's going to be secure if I have my side and they have their side, but that just creates perpetual conflict on an ongoing basis, and no one learns from each other. And there's fighting going on all the time. How can you ever have harmony in that framework? Can't.
3, comparison, projections, and prejudice due to enmeshment and uncomfortable similarities.
One of the things right now people have been saying to me, there's all these equity movements. Where do they fit? I said they fit in the third level. They always fit around idealization, because before it was always about the putting people higher, putting the white privileged man above everybody else. Everybody know we're in that program. And then also putting the, anybody that's different, anybody that's not understood as some kind of lower class citizen. Anybody. We're so prejudiced, we can't believe it. That's all prejudice. And it's because we have no capacity for complexity. We have no capacity to understand how we're really working together or how we could be working together. We have no desire to honor mutual goodness, the goodness of every human being. And that's why we can't see equality, because we've never experienced it. We've been in
So Larry, quick question.
yeah.
Quick question. What is it in terms of what is it that causes a desire to exploit or objectify at the heart?
Well, I would say if you're really looking at where the escalation is the highest, it's in the second level. And I'll tell you why that is. It's because hierarchy comes out of a lack of understanding of what's going on around us. And it comes out of a lack of self-knowledge. And so what you do is you end up getting people representing the intelligence of like an organization. So that's why you have people at the top supposedly know the most, but they don't, but they act like they do. And of course, everybody lower has no power relative to those above. Now, if you're looking at escalation, what we teach in that level is the way to persevere is to not take in any new input and just keep repeating yourself. How many times have you seen that in recent political times? They just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. And eventually people get tired of arguing with them. And so they think they win. Now, escalation itself is constantly being pushed and pressured. Usually it's a lot of pressure to prove how much more right we are than other people. And we keep thinking there's a logical way to prove we're better and we're superior to other people. That's what is driving that. So we get these layers and levels where we think we should be in control and telling the people who don't know what to do what they need to do. That's just going to create more crap. I just want to let you know. But unfortunately, they think it's a better way of operating because they don't know. They're in such uncertainty and such fear. They don't understand that they're contributing to the problem. They actually are the problem. The people that are trying to drive the process and not knowing what they're doing are actually the problem. They're the people who are stratifying people, thinking that there's better and worse. And then they're giving only the people that think like them some ability to have power with them. And of course, it's not much. And that's what the escalation process is. Do you follow that, Angela?
Yeah, thank you. A lot to think about. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sandy?
Friction is inertia, competition, resistance, and pain.
No, we did that. We did that, didn't we?
Yeah, so it looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. So we complete this one
I
then?
think we're done then.
Okay, great. Oh, we didn't do the third one. That was the problem.
Oh. Comparison, projections, and
Oh,
prejudice
yeah, we did do that. We did do that.
due to enmeshment and uncomfortable similarities.
Yeah, I didn't talk about uncomfortable similarities. That was the problem. So the issue is uncomfortable similarities are we're afraid to be with people like ourselves. It would reveal too much about us. It would tell us that we're not alone, but of course we'd rather be alone because it allows us to have the delusion that we can have more control. So anyway, the point I'm going to say here is that uncomfortable similarities require us to confront that we have to love ourselves for who we really are. Because when we're around people that are like us, we have to do something about it because we're activated because they're being the way they are in a way that's irritating the crap out of us because we know we could be that way too, but we're unwilling to accept it. especially except being like that person. No, not like that person. So guess what? It is uncomfortable similarities is a big issue around 3, whereas dealing with differences is a big issue with 1. And level 1 is all about dealing with, are we authentic or are we Memorex? Are we our imprinting or are we, are we going to be real? Those are the big questions around that. And a lot of people being unreal, repulses us. And that's the big problem of the irritation on level 1. The big problem on is the fighting that goes on, the arguing that goes on level 2. The intensity just keeps building up until we blow against it. Then on level 3, we get enmeshed, we get defined, and we want to be like them. We're trying to learn how to deal with similarities. We're trying to learn how to accept ourselves, and we're not clear about how to completely do that. And so we keep running into places where we're stretching ourselves and scared to move forward. And that's where the upper boundary limits happens. Okay. Cool. Questions about that? Okay.
Larry, I have a question about that. This is Rhonda.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about like sort of being priested, and as a priest, like I was priested by another priest today, and if you put that in the in that framework, in that 3rd level of like uncomfortable similarities, it was really interesting to notice just like the different facets of that, like what was projection and where was the idealization happening and things like that, and just trying to kind of notice so that maybe I would do less of that with others. But I don't know, I just wonder if maybe you could speak to that, because it's kind of funny to think about priests priesting other priests and just kind of how we do that.
Well, first of all, the reason why that becomes an issue in our society is because it is the job of the visionaries. It is the job of the visionaries to help support other people's growth. So first of all, you can't really blame the visionaries for doing their job. So I just want to say, yes, it can be irritating. Yes, it can be difficult for some people, but a certain degree of that is to be expected. Now, why am I saying that? It's because it's built into the visionaries. It's in their DNA that they're trying to calibrate to other people's feelings and emotions, and they're tuning into them deeply, and they're able to read people's truth much more than some people can see themselves. And yet they've got to find a divine timing about when to bring that up. That is the problem they have. They learn over time not to push themselves to have to say things. And then when they get off of that, then they start realizing, oh, there is a time when you can talk about that. And you can always preface it by adding, would you be open to me making a suggestion? And then you can, if they said yes, you could give it to them. If they said no, they could, you don't need to give it to them. So that would be a good thing to start with. Now the problem with the visionaries in a way is they're also most susceptible to idealization. Why? Because their gift is to unify people on the emotional level. That means they are, even though they're doing a huge service to the planet by bringing people's emotions together, and they do that, they're also at the same time getting confused about how to separate out different people's ideals when they need to do that. So different people have different ideals, and they're always aggregating them. Do you understand? They're always bringing people's ideals together. And that is not always the wisest thing to do. If they were more clear up front about which group had certain ideals, and then they got the ideal people lined up with each other, that would be a incredibly more positive outcry. But if there is a lot of people that are just swept away by the ideals of the rest of the group, and they're going to be a completely a problem for the visionaries as they start moving along, because they can't move with the group. And then the visionaries will feel obligated to talk to them about that. Well, if you're in this group, this is what we're doing. And of course, that's going to upset people. And then they go, well, why am I always the bad person? Why am I always the person that is getting called out on this? And they get tired of it. They get really tired of it. Would you like to say anything more, Sandy, about that?
Other than the fact that I bring that up on a regular basis.
Yes, like clockwork.
Yeah, it's very difficult as a primary visionary or priest to not want to jump in and try to make things better and make suggestions and offer advice. And the truth is that it really doesn't help. It doesn't make me happy when people do it, and I have to remember it doesn't make them happy when I do it. So among my visionary and priest friends, we've developed a code phrase, which is don't ask, don't tell. If you don't ask, I don't tell. And I try really hard to live by that. It's not always so easy, but it's the goal, right, Rhonda?
Okay, Rhonda.
Right. Yeah, we joke about it being the motto being, solving problems you didn't know you had.
Yeah. Let me help you solve problems you don't know you have. So it is.
So I appreciate that.
It is the learning process of the
Sandy.
visionary priests, right?
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're talking about is more pregnant duration and
Yes.
more better calibration to to help avoid misunderstandings about what people are actually mean when they say what they say or do what they do.
Yes, so you've named two of the three things I would have said. So
Okay.
It's also about planting seeds, which is back to the actualization levels of the visionary energy.
yes, so you named the first two, and the one I would add to that is alignment. You have to kind of tune into what's in alignment with the purpose of both the planet
Okay.
and yourself, your group, the planet, bring that into alignment. Okay.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and going to the point of tonight, by being able to do that in a common neutral ground, it takes the edges off of all of that.
It does.
Yeah.
And also lets you frame things in a conversational way where you don't assume that the other person is on board. I say it all the time. I ask questions before I tell people things. A lot of times when I'm engaging them, I'm asking questions to make sure I'm not overstepping my own integrity. If they need something, great. If they don't need something, great. I'm just trying to serve them and their process. And so asking the questions, do you need to know about this, or is this something important to you? Or I would have thought that this problem could have been going on, but I may not know at all what's going on in your head. And when you say those things, it gives permission for people to reveal themselves and to involve the conversation, or have that be involved in the conversation. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to bring our problem to another person, just dump it in the common ground, say, you fix me. Right? That's not the game. It's a mutual thing. Okay.
Well, and that's where we find alignment, is in that interaction. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, differences in attachment, lack of life energy ownership. Attachments are safety substitutes when we are not willing to take ownership of our own creative capacity. Attachments can be things like money, phones, computers, cars, or homes. It can be people or personal expectations. Many believe that the things they possess are extensions of who they are. This makes people objects and encourages judging ourselves and others based on attractiveness. We end up trying to sell our beauty, or failing that, we sell the comfort of a life represented by our possessions. Attachments are objectifications of self. They are an outer form that discards our inner beauty. As long
So
as
the problem is that we deny our inner beauty. And if we deny our inner beauty, we're also denying our inner creative core. That's the other part of the problem that is going on here. Okay.
As long as we focus on superficial views of ourselves, we experience no safety.
We keep looking for safety in others. We keep believing that the others represent our safety, and that just creates codependent relationships where we get hurt.
We choose instead those who reinforce our sense of safety. Imprinting, conflicts, and expectation differences minimize our ability to connect in positive ways. The solution is energetic integrity.
So if we're honoring our own boundaries and we're not projecting our own, that other people take care of our energy or other people try to manage us, then we have more freedom. And that's what we want to have in a common ground.
Energetic integrity means accepting others as they are so we can be ourselves. Imbalances between ownership of sensations and feelings define excitement attractions. Our assumptions need to be examined and changed so we can see the beauty in other. And this is about possessiveness.
Yep. Any questions about attachments? By the way, I'm just giving you the bare essentials here. You know, every time I write things like this, I'm going, how can I put it into one slide, you know? And in the class, this one slide is one night. And so there's a lot more experience that go with this. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you mean by imprinting conflicts?
Well, let's just use you for an example. You know, you do have a parent that is either a server and or a priest, right?
No, I've got an inventor dad and an investigator priest server mum.
Yeah, server mom. The server part of you, you see your third thing is compassion or server. And usually the third thing is what we do to protect our parents from ourselves, from our parents. So there is a projection on her that we have to take care of people. And so you grow up thinking, oh, I got to take care of people to be seen as good. So what you do is you have a boundary that's putting other people first and not taking care of yourself. And yet you are a very independent soul. And you like doing things with people that are motivated to be self-initiating. And being around people that are really caretakers brings out the worst in you. And you have reactions sometimes to people, you know, compromising themselves, trying to care for you. Because when you see that, you go, hey, you didn't even ask me. You didn't even ask me what I wanted, and you thought you knew what you wanted, and you did this, and why didn't you ask me? Because I feel obligated to acknowledge you because you did that for me, but you know what? I didn't really need it. So that's an example of an imprinted conflict. Because what it is you have a conflict within yourself about how you expect people to be that's not aligned with your creative nature. And so it brings out responses in you where you think you should be a certain way and you're not, you don't want to be that way. And over time, you've grown up, you said, no, I'm not going to keep losing myself, taking care of other people. No, XX, get away, get away. So run, run, run. So the point is, you've gotten really good at not taking that on, but other people around you still respond to you as if that is the way that you would want it. Now, here's the other thing. There's a natural part of you underneath all that that is very, very appreciative of other people caring for you. But if they're in their head about that and they're not tuned into you, they're going to do all kinds of things that don't make sense. And so you're fighting the things that don't make sense. And then you're really appreciating the things that do make sense and they do match you. And so you really start to know who are the people that get you and who are the people that don't. So in a certain bizarre way, it could be useful just to know which are the right people to be around. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Cool. Are we finished with this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Differences in positions, lack of light or wisdom ownership. We take positions when we are afraid of the responsibility and power of owning our truth. Taking a position also makes us define ourselves as half an individual, someone who needs other people in order to be successful.
So the ironic thing is, because we make ourselves half a person, now we have to go out and really prove how independent we are. Isn't that funny? It's like we cut ourselves in two and then are pissed off that other people are not seeing us as whole and capable. It is really bizarre. We're our own worst enemies in this situation.
In our search for security, we align ourselves with those we hope will complete us.
So it's like, if you're the opposite of me, then I can take your half that you like, and I can be the other half that I like. And between the two of us, we can create one person. And so when people say, oh, you complete me, it's usually about that. It's usually about feeling like together we have all the bases covered and we can be secure. But as you know, that doesn't last. What it does is it creates insecurity very quickly, because we start realizing that our partner is changing and we're changing. And if we're changing at all, it means that we have to constantly renegotiate things. And that means that we have to be more willing to grow, and we're not. Most of us are stuck in that level. Okay, because we're stuck in our positions.
To prove our independence, we avoid expressing the same perspective or position. Our defenses further separate us as our identity becomes about acquiring power. This sets us up for competition and fighting. We come to believe in our intellectual and emotional superiority.
It's actually or.
We come to believe in our intellectual or emotional superiority, which increases conflict.
So people either take the view, I'm really the superior person with my emotional perceptivity, like my intuition, or I'm really superior with my logic and my clarity of my mental process. I'm precise. Man, wouldn't you like to be around a good, precise person? And of course, you're talking to a person who's not precise, and they're going, yeah, I definitely need that, because they repress that part of themselves. Okay, now you get the idea.
It's an interesting example.
I did.
Our truths are lost, and direct opposition to our partner reflects the degree we have not accepted our own inner wisdom or intelligence. This results in intensity as long as we think we have to prove we are better than others.
And at this level, we really do believe that.
Positions are codependent traps. If that picture is not enough to scare us away from this, I don't know what is. I don't know where you find these pictures. Arguments between positions cannot ever be resolved without wisdom. Defensive timing leads to not being able to accept our weaknesses or differences. We seek complementary positions to create an illusion of security.
Okay, so the opposite attract model is what drives this. Okay.
Differences in projections. Lack of love or context ownership. Owning our masculine and feminine aspects allows us to experience our goodness and express creative joy through love. What challenges this integration is false projections based on underdoing or overdoing self-importance. We see imbalances between the masculine and feminine with the externalization of self-esteem and introspection about our self-respect. Imbalances in esteem and respect minimize our ability to love. When we lack masculine and feminine virtues, we need personalized expressions of love to reassure us that our partner is committed to the relationship. Instinctive, sexual, conditional, and idealized expressions of love are all projections that keep the hope of connection alive. Protective, directive, or quid pro quo expressions of love are examples of these demeaning projections.
There's so much here. I just want to say we could talk for days on this topic because it's where most people are right now, and they're not able to distinguish what's true and good for them versus what's untrue and bad for them.
So is this what we're going to all look like in our own little bubbles?
No, this is the worst case scenario. As you go out in the world, people think they have very little space and they're in their own bubbles and they don't realize it. So this is visionaries in a bubble, okay?
Hey, Larry,
Yeah.
can you speak to like projections? I'm just realizing that I use projections and a common neutral ground as a bonding.
Yes. Yes. And almost everybody does. So let me just tell you what that is. Projections can be either, like I said earlier, can be desired or people can be repulsed by them. People want people to see them a certain way. And if I can convince you I'm a certain way that I'm not, then that's a projection that I'm encouraging you to make of me. Does that make sense? And then there's the other side of the equation, which is I'm making a projection on you because I don't like what I see in myself, and I need to find a way to have it part of the conversation. And in that situation, it creates a circumstance where we can't really, we're judging the other person. And they're uncomfortable with where they are, and they can't even address it without upsetting us. So it creates an enmeshment cycle is what really happens there. So did that make sense, Kachina?
Actually, I got booted off and I just got back, but I'll get it on the recording.
Okay, that's good.
Sorry about that.
No, it's understand. I saw you disappear. I didn't know what was going on. So let me just say this to you, just to answer it. The projections can be positive in some people's minds because they're affirming what the other person wants to believe.
Mhm.
And that's our way of bonding with people. We agree with them in some way, and we say, oh, you're really good at this and everything. And they want to be really good with that, but they're not maybe as good as we say. We're just going along with them. Okay. Now we have the other side of the equation. And by the way, when we do that, we're losing a part of our truth in that, and part of our integrity in that process, because then we're having in the future to agree with everything that relates to what we're agreeing with them about. We're making the communications all distorted to make that fit, to make that reality possible, if you think about it.
Mhm.
And because it gets worse and worse and worse over time. And we have to remember all these things with each person about where our lies are, right? So we don't step in it and upset them. And people that can't do that are always getting called out by their partners. You said I was this way and you agree with me. Oh yeah, I did, but really I didn't see that. And then the people, then everything shit hits the fan and people really get upset. But that's one form of projection. The other form of projection is where I'm uncomfortable with how I'm feeling with you, but I can't accept that feeling of that discomfort, and I want it to be about you. And so when I'm perceiving it, and I'm in just in a one-on-one relationship, and I have no common ground, we're all sharing the same space, so we can't distinguish if it's your reaction or my reaction. Now, if I have a common ground, I can check it in the common ground and say, is it a reaction there? That means it's in your space with me in the common ground. And if I check it in my personal space and it's not there, it's not about me. That issue is not about me, and it's not a projection on you. Now, if I, on the other hand, I'll do the other side. If I'm doing a projection on you and I'm dissociating it and I'm putting it on you, and I say it in the common ground, you're this way and you're being that way, and oh my God. And they're saying, I don't feel that. I don't feel that. It doesn't seem true to me. Then I have to validate. Well, am I reactive in my personal space? If I'm reactive in my personal space, now I know the projection starts with me.
Right, right.
And it's my problem with my fear, not your problem with your fear. And then the other thing I can do is I can say, and I see how I'm projecting it on them, and that's creating possible entanglement with them, but they're reacting to the entanglement. They're not reacting to the original assumption. They're saying, you're kind of roping me in here. You're kind of closing the door, so I have no way out. You know, who are you being a good partner, or are you just dumping on me? You know, that's where the dumping comes in. Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Another thing that I'm noticing with the projections and defenses, and what you were talking about on the other slide, was if any of those come into the common neutral ground, I just don't have any compassion. And so when
I know, and that's that. Let me just cut to the chase there. When you say you have no compassion, you fucking have a lot of compassion. Excuse me. You do, but you don't have energy. Let's be more clear. You may not have energy or space or time to deal with that situation, but you are a compassionate person.
Oh,
I know that. I know that from talking with you. So don't bullshit me about that. So
no, I don't. Let me clarify that. I totally acknowledge that I'm a compassionate person. It's like the defenses and the projections, like they cut off my supply.
They do. Well, let me just say this to you. There are impositions on you that you're in reaction to them.
Yeah.
And there's no way it's taking you energy to deal with that. And there's no way you can recover your space if you don't have a common ground. If you had a common ground and they were doing it on the common ground, you can say, hey, I have no more space in the common ground. You push me out. Give me a break. Let me back in. You know, you have to work with this. This is a mutual thing, you know. And the other thing here is you have to have enough energy to manage it. If there is a constant berating of you, you lose energy. You lose energy when people attack you. It takes energy to deal with that. So what's happening is you're losing energy. And so they're usually successful because they flatten you. And then the person goes, hey, look, I don't want to argue anymore. You can have it. You know, you can, whatever it is that I was arguing about, I don't want to talk about it anymore. And because that's how they win. Now, on the other side of this process is that if you had energy and you were doing it from a common ground and you had time and space and you were in abundance there, you could just say to him, wow, that didn't really work for me. Does it work for you? We need to manage it out here so that we can have a connection. And since it's not in your space that we're having a connection, it isn't really about you. And you know that. This is the beauty of having a common ground, is you know whether it's your issue and you have to do something about it, or whether or not it's the relationship issue, or whether or not it's completely their issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think, and I also think about being a priest, and the whole wanting to fix.
Yes.
And that also cuts out off my supply of compassion, because when I've noticed a lot lately that when I don't go into that, it's like reworking my nervous system not to go into that.
Yes.
And
so by the way, that is really more of your defensive attachment to doing your priest work. Because you got to do it well. You got to be better. You got to make sure you got to make sure you're the best of the breed. I understand that. But by the way, that's all just temporary stuff. You're growing out of that. You can say to yourself, the rewiring is you mastering that. So you don't take that on and don't react that way anymore. If you allow yourself and say, oh, I need time right now to recharge and rewire myself and give myself energy here, or I need time or I need space to do that emotionally, because that's another thing. You get tired on the emotions, which is all about space. So your emotions and your feelings always relate to your space. When you're dealing with your thoughts and your emotions, they always deal with your timing issues. And when you're with your sensations and feelings, it always deals with your attachment issues or your life energy issues. So it's the energy itself. Okay.
Yeah. Got it. Thanks, Larry. That was great.
Yeah.
Larry,
Okay.
Katie has a question.
Yeah, Katie.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on time recently spent in silence and being in silence myself, but interacting with people who are in conversations with one another, and really noticing first, like, just how much of conversation is projection, and then also where I might have participated in that, and my projections I would have brought into that conversation if I were speaking. Like, the outer silence, not using my voice, kind of allows me to see those thoughts as they would form and bring themselves into the conversations.
Yes.
And and it feels like I was loving what Kachina was saying, how there is like this degree of bonding that happens through like participating in that projectional conversation.
Yes.
And so my curiosity is like, as we're learning to project less and less in our lives and our conversations, is it
We upgrade that. I think where you're going is we upgrade that to a creative level. And the bonding occurs through intimate vulnerability. Intimate vulnerability is the higher level of connection, or what we used to call this vibrational expansion. It's like holding space for bigger possibilities and not having any need for it to be limited the way we were holding it previously when we projected. So it expands the space. That's what it would be. And by the way, Katie, you're totally on track, because we say on the third level, it's always about getting to silence. And there's a contemplative kind of quality that arises in consciousness when we're able to not project.
Yeah, I'm recognizing the importance of being in silence while others aren't.
Yes.
For at least for myself, of like the power of that, like listening and being totally in silence.
Yes. And so as a coach, when you give them people space and you don't speak,
Mhm.
and you see where they go, that really tells you a lot. It tells you the energetic flow of the whole thing.
Right. Right. So I'm thinking there's probably a period of silence and really implementing that. And then from that silence, you can start to bring in more light in a
Yes.
more creative way.
Yeah, but you need the pregnant pause or the pregnant duration
Uh-huh.
there to bring that light in. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's informed by how well you're using love in the space to hold the space.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a little bit, that's a little bit more advanced practices that we're going to be learning. Okay. So
How about a break?
yeah, we need a break.
Or do you want to, Sandy, did you want to finish this slide?
We're not quite done with the slide yet.
Okay, let's finish this slide.
Projections compromise our goodness, making our world difficult and depressing. Diverging or conflicted ideals reduce radiant self-unifying love and co-creative expression. Less personal space creates more difficult, overbearing projections.
So by the way, I just want to say a couple of things about this. So in China, they have a higher population density, and you've heard about the space saving process, right? They make huge projections to protect each other's personality space. That's what it is. So when they're more, they have less personal space, you do more projections naturally, and you're more damaging with the projections you do as well. And they become very forceful. And so that's a kind of interesting thing you can start observing.
So that also combines societal expectations into the projections, right?
Yes, but it goes into entitlement and idealization and self-importance. When people have those combination of factors, it pushes them to try to steal space from others and control the spaces of others around them. Okay, that'll probably give you something to think about.
Uncomfortable similarities are caused by upper boundary limits that prevent the acceptance of our own truth.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a break right now, and we'll take a 7-minute break and we'll come back to this. Okay, everyone, we're back. Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about a little bit about creative flow, and because we want to kind of complete this as to what we want to do with all these challenges we've been talking about. We want to make sure that you can accept them and work with them and move forward with them. Okay, Sandy?
What is creative flow? Abundant energy, time, and space. Harmony. When we know ourselves creatively, we can see and experience our differences and similarities directly. We learn to initiate connections consciously by identifying with our authentic nature. The more we shape our creative experience to focus and develop its qualities, the easier it becomes to direct, producing experiences of flow. We can validate this by noticing how we can shift our perceptions of energy, time, and space on demand.
If you can't shift your own perceptual space, then you're not experiencing enough creative flow. And it means that you haven't accepted your creative nature enough yet. We want to get you to the creative flow, because when you have creative flow, it's easy to establish common ground. When you're having difficulty establishing common ground, a lot of times it's because you don't know what your own intent is, you don't know what your content is, you don't know what your context is, you haven't put it all together. Okay.
We learn to expand and interconnect our intent, content, and context to facilitate our actions, centralizing our awareness and creative power.
That's what I was just saying.
This interconnection to ourselves naturally evolves into a common neutral ground, even if we do not call it such.
So people have common grounds, even if they don't know about common ground technology. It's just an evolutionary developmental process. We get to a place where we need to be more clear about our interpersonal relationships. And so we have to develop a way to separate or manage the other people in our lives versus ourselves. We have to balance those out so that we're not lost in the process, and that we can emerge and speak our truth without imposing it on anybody else. That is the value here.
This interconnection to ourselves naturally evolves into a common neutral ground, even if we do not call it such, because we want to fully interconnect this expanded consciousness with others. Common neutral ground eliminates friction and conflict by not identifying with false personality assumptions, beliefs, and needs.
So if you really were to say, what are the elements that we shift in ourselves? We would effectively, I would say, is we transmute assumptions, we transform beliefs, and we transfigure our needs. Now, what does that mean? It means that we're seeing things in a bigger way, and we're not taking it on and personalizing these things, because they become a larger possibility that we can solve problems with other people, rather than we're doing it all, our way and trying to push others to be more like us. It's not helpful to do that. Okay. It's not productive to do that, is really what I should say. Okay, Sandy.
Owning our energy, time, and space to empower our sharing. Owning our time and wisdom so we do not argue over different priorities. Owning our space and awareness, responding to what is needed. This is responsiveness.
Yes. So creative flow, a lot of people say there is an ease with creative flow. There's a joy with creative flow. There is possibilities that we feel more spacious with people around the common ground. Why? Because we have abundance. We're operating from a place of internal abundance. We're not operating from scarcity. If you're coming from your personality and your needs, you're going to come from scarcity. You're always going to be using scarcity, and you're always trying to impose structure on others to serve you. Now, when you take care of yourself, you don't need to impose any order on others, and you can be yourself, and you can invite others to be themselves. That's what a common ground does. Takes the pressure off the relationship to perform or to do anything for you, which is fabulous. That's what we really want. Okay. So I just want to just briefly summarize these 3 slides, because I don't want to take too much more time on this, but you guys can come back to this and really look here. When we're interacting with people, when we're doing it creatively, we're interacting with people through aliveness, awareness, and wisdom. That's how we're interacting with people. Either we're sharing our common knowing, which is wisdom, or we're sharing our body knowing, which is aliveness, or we're sharing our perceptivity, which is awareness. That's what's going on. Now, the other person can respond on any of those levels and interact with us. We're equal people. We're co-creative equals in this process. And so we can share their wisdom with my wisdom. I could share my awareness with their awareness. And we're creating, in the common ground, we're creating a more unified, larger picture of ourselves. Now, the beautiful thing is when I put a version of myself in the common ground, I still have my own version of myself in my own space, personal space. But in that space, I can engage and think of and play with new options, higher options, options that they suggest. I can go, oh, let's try that. Let's do that. Let's experience that. That's how we get to grow more consciously as a couple or as a group. When people are sharing their experiences, they are learning how to have common resourcefulness. They're learning how to blend different ways of doing things into a common intention, even a universal intention. And that's how we come together as as conscious people. But anyway, I think that's enough about that, unless somebody has a particular question. Okay. So the people, they're looking to me to kind of give them a snapshot of what we're intending to do. And so we're bringing our life, light, and love through our hearts, hopefully. And you can also bring it through your head if you want to, but there's a value in coming through the heart. And we're projecting and we're imagining this independent space. Now, over time, our imagination precipitates the reality of a bubble or a globe, or however else you want to imagine it. Some people customize their common ground. They make it colors, they make it different sizes. I just ask people not to overlap their common space with their personal space. That's the only thing I ask. The rest of it, customize away. Make it whatever you want it to be. And by the way, people feel comfortable in certain sizes, shapes, connections, and they can put any degree of life, light, and love energy into the common ground and see how the other person can respond to that. If the other person doesn't have particular energies, then you won't be able to bring those energies together with them. You might be able to hold energy for them, but you won't be able to amplify their energy if they're not bringing any into it. That is the basic limitation of the process. Okay. I can go through the process of creating a common ground. I'm going to go step back here. The first step is to create your own personal space, your own autonomous space. Now, most people have a personal space of 12 to 14 inches around their body. Now, some of you may have slightly larger or slightly smaller personal spaces. You can know it because, you can be around people and you can notice when people come in too close to you, you feel it. That's your personal space being interacted with them. And so you have to learn to own whatever your space is, not adjust to the space you're in. You have to define what the space is. That would be my suggestion. Now, the second thing is, as soon as you anchor in your heart, you have to see if you have energy to create the common ground. And the way we're asking you to do that is do you have 10% energy to put, or 15% energy to put into the common ground and creating the common ground? If you don't have that much energy to share, don't create a common ground with them. You'll do better without a common ground than with a crappy common ground. Okay? So no crappy common grounds. Okay? Let's just eliminate that from your vocabulary. When you have enough energy, then you can show up with the abundant time, energy, and space, right? That's what you need to be able to do. If you can't have those three things and do that, you're not going to be able to affirm the common ground as your creative space. And you're not going to be able to direct it to serve your connection with other people. And if it doesn't have enough energy or attention, the other person won't be drawn to the common ground. They'll still try to go into your heart. They'll try to go into your body. How many people notice that people connect to other people by locking into their bodies energetically? It drains you to let them do that. Let's eliminate all that. Let's manage our own space by having our own. Now, if you have a partner that you're sexually connected to, you're not going to be able to do this. But almost everybody else, you want to be able to manage how much energy you're sharing with them. And the way to do that is to have your own space and always have it balanced and always independent of everybody else. So you don't let them come into your space. You put your attention in the common ground. By putting your attention in the common ground, they are attracted to the energy of your attention in the common ground and they connect to it. And they don't even know they're not connected in your body, most of them. Now, if you're gut conscious people, they'll know and they'll appreciate your common ground, and it'll give them an opportunity to connect with you better. Any questions about that so far? Now, you want to be in a common ground, connect to the person in the common ground, and you notice you'll have two areas of awareness. You have your personal awareness in your body, and you have your transpersonal awareness in the common ground. The transpersonal awareness will be tuning into the other person. The personal awareness will be just being with yourself. You want to be with yourself in your own space. You don't want to confuse those two frameworks, because you need to know where things are coming from. Otherwise, you'll be whipsawed around by the other person. Not a program, not appropriate. Okay, questions about that?
Hey, Larry.
Yeah.
Just can you say a little bit, like, so when you have a romantic partner, it's different because you're sleeping together, you're, intimate together, because, so
yes,
you're
so sometimes, so I would say have conversations in a common ground, but if you're being sexual with the person, you're going to have more balancing happening through your heart, through your Hara center, through your head. You're going to have more interconnections direct to direct. Most people that are unconscious are only going to do it genitally. That's all they're going to do the thing. But if you're with a conscious person, it's going to be more broad and it's going to be more available. They're going to be more available on these other levels. Okay.
And does that energy, then it's more of like when, I don't know, like I listen to Stan Tackenstein talks, it's about more of a one energy when you're a couple. Is it because the energies are so blended in that?
Well,
space?
You don't want to be totally blended. The blending can happen in a sexual situation, and usually you're directing the energy in a figure 8 through your body, and so that you're connecting on the 3 levels. There's a whole class I have on this, so I would go there and just play with that. But my point I'm trying to say here is that's a special case, but even when you have day-to-day interactions with each other, you want to honor each other, you want to hold each other in the highest regard, and you want to be able to learn from each other. Those are all greatly facilitated with the common ground. And that's
I love that.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah. So one more thing. Some of the visionaries, some of the priests, you would say, they have a lot of eye energy. Just want to let you know, they have a lot of eye energy. And so when they do their eye stare, in case you know, some of you can get overwhelmed, especially inventors. If inventors are overwhelmed, it's really a good idea to manage that by recycling their energy down into your heart and then up to support the common ground. So take the energy in through the eyes, because man, they're giving it to you. They're giving you the light directly to you, And when they do that, bring the energy in, bring it down to your heart, then use it to support the common ground, and don't let it distract you. Okay. Now, I'm just saying that to you because you don't want to feel like you're being grilled by them or energetically off balance by them. You want to use that energy in a positive way. Now, the ones that are conscious will have more of a soft look at you. They'll use soft eyes. And that also tells you their understanding that the intensity of their eyes can sometimes be overwhelming. Okay. So I think I've covered the main things, except we want to close down the common ground when you leave each other or when you're not talking anymore. Why? Because we want to manage your energy well. And so when you close down the energy, you just imagine bringing the energy back to your heart, or letting go of the energy, putting it down to the earth, whatever you feel is the most appropriate thing to do. It's a metaphoric way of cleansing the situation and clearing the space. And it's very valuable to learn some technique in that, so you can bring back creating the common ground in a couple seconds. That's what people eventually do. They learn how to just bring the common ground up naturally when they bring, and they see person and they're connecting to them and they're talking to them. They bring everything right into focus, and then they're there for them. And that's, by the way, people are going to notice that you're more available to them than when you don't have a common ground. They're going to think that either you're more conscious, or that you're more present, or that you have avenues of seeing them that they don't really have access to sometimes. And that's all fine. If they ask questions about it, you can share common ground techniques with them. It's no big deal. Okay. So with that in mind,
Hey, Larry.
yeah.
I just wanted to ask a question about the I energy and circulating that. Like, I think I heard you say once, like, we bring it in, the I energy into our hearts, and then circulate it back to them through the eyes.
No, I don't recommend that. I always recommend that you go to the heart and then you use it in the common ground.
So maybe bring it.
You bring it down to the heart, and the heart is always connecting to the common ground. And so it supports the common ground.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's a better thing, because if you're trying to bring it back to them, it could get into a perceived competitive thing. You don't want to be in any competitive thing with the visionary with their eyes. I can tell you that will not be appropriate. That will not end well. Let's just say that.
Losing battle.
You will lose your cookies. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. So I was going to say here that the ultimate goal of common ground is to recreate the other partner and how we respond to that in the common ground. So when I'm in the common ground, what I do is I listen to them and I start building a model of what they're saying to me. I start building certain patterns of what they're saying to me. And what I'm doing is I'm actually building a structure of what it means to me, that what they're saying and how it relates to me. And so that I'm really recreating what they're saying. And over time, I know exactly where they're operating from. Why? Because it's really observing all their patterns of interaction, and it's observing their intelligences in action. And you can pick up everything really quickly when you have a personal experience of somebody and you are recreating them on a consistent basis. So let me just say this to you. So I have people around me that I'm talking to on a regular basis, like Sandy and stuff. Guess what? I know how she thinks. And you know what? When I'm talking to her from the place we last talked. You know, I have a common ground that I know how to work with her. I bring up that common ground and I just continue the conversation. Now, the structure is all there. I know all of Sandy's pet peeves. I know all of her issues. I can joke with her about them sometimes. She doesn't always appreciate everything I say. I have to say that. But at the same time, I'm sensitive to the fact that there are certain parts about this she doesn't necessarily need to deal with, or she doesn't need to hear, or that it's not appropriate to bring up, because either there's no permission for me to do that because she's not invited me to do that, because you never give people things that you're not invited to engage them. You don't do that. What you do is you support them in letting them decide the pace, the process, the timing of what is going on in the relationship. You always give your partner opportunities to determine what that is. Okay. And since I've known her for the years we've had ongoing discussions about certain deep topics that continually come up. And I keep pointing out how much progress she's made in the last cycle of stuff about that. Do you want to say anything about that, Sandy?
Nothing, not really, other than I hope I return the favor.
Yes, good. Okay. The reason why I'm saying this is because there's a learning process with every person that is almost a sacred thing. And it's the real value of a common ground. And understanding a person and appreciating them for who they are, loving them for who you are, you want to get to know more. And the common ground provides the framework for doing that in a very clean and effective way. Okay.
Well, the other thing I think it does, Larry, is that the relationship in its own way lives in the common neutral ground. So when you go back to it, the history is there.
Yes.
The flow and continuation of it is there.
Yes, exactly. And you know what's really fascinating is I get compliments from people who I've not talked to in years, and they're freaked out almost when I continue a conversation we had last time we talked, and it's been 20 years. Now, the reason is because I have them energetically locked in kind of my common neutral ground repository, and I have a structure where I just access the structure, and then, oh yeah, I know all that stuff. You see my point? And that's the pattern they're coming from. Now they're coming from the place of trying to figure out where I'm at. That's what they're doing. Why? Because they don't have a common neutral ground experience of what's going on with each other. Now, I'm going to give you another slight problem here, and that is you can even tune into the common neutral ground framework you have and figure out and tune into that person and figure out what's going on with that person, because it becomes a template for you. Now, I don't want to emphasize the airy-fairy parts of this work at all, but I just want to say, you know, when a lot of people when they come to me, I'm talking to them about their friends, I can see their common ground and what their friends' relationship is. And then I start doing profiles on or doing assessments on their friends. Because I said, oh, that person's ... Why is that? Because you have it so clearly, the person's whole pattern so clearly in your space. You have it in their space. And all I'm doing is accessing your insights about this friend over many years. And especially when they're very good friends, there's no problem doing that. You see my point? That's where we're going in this world. We're going to a place where we're more conscious about all the elements of who people are, and we can hold those in our own experience in a way that generates more alignment and creative possibilities. Okay. So by the way, I have a whole thing here about recreating experiences, but that's enough, because we're going to move on to doing a guided imagery process where I'm just going to guide you through creating a common ground so you have what the experience is kind of internalized. And as many people know here, this is an opportunity for you to check into your own space, and you can turn off your screens, and you can just relax in whatever position you're in, and just notice how you can tune into your body. Maybe allow yourself to take a couple deep breaths and let go of all the tension that you may have been holding. Perhaps you were concerned about learning all this. Well, you can listen to it. You can look at the writing. There's lots of ways you can learn more about this or be reminded about this. There's not going to be a need for you to keep it all in your head right now. I'm just going to ask you to start with acknowledging the energy in your heart. It's our central repository, our heart's chalice. contains all our virtues, all our aspirations. And just look at how well you are energized in this moment. Ask yourself, can you spare 10 to 15% of your energy without compromising who you are right now? And we're going to ask you to engage a process, but if you don't have the energy right now, it's totally okay just to listen in the background and allow yourself to tune into whatever you need to do to reduce your tension and to relax and to regenerate yourself. And for those of you that want to move forward and actually do the process step by step, notice that you can bring energy together from your hara center, which is 4 inches lower than your navel, or your head between your temples, and your heart. So that when we create this bubble out in the space, you're focusing all the energy to your heart, and then you're channeling it out by imagining a tendril of energy going out to the common space. And you're having a bubble at the end of it. And just imagine that bubble. And this is a bubble that's 12 to 18 inches in front of your face. It's outside of your personal space. And just take a moment to create a connection with that space. We would say it's your transpersonal awareness. And allow yourself to use that tendril of energy to channel down your creative components you're willing to share with people, your creative energies, your creative nature. And in your mind's eye, just see that energy moving from your heart to the common ground bubble. And just make sure that you've filled up that bubble with a copy of your consciousness, especially your creativity, to form this common ground space. And if you tune into that bubble, you can start to see that it is a semi-mirrored perception of your own self that exists in your heart. It's just that your heart is your personal self, where you make your own choices. And in the common ground, it's your transpersonal awareness of how you decide to interact with the world. And just imagine the common ground reflecting your creative expression and organized by your sense of energy, time, and space. And when this is complete, I just want you to center on a part of your awareness in this space so you can go back to this whenever you want. Just imagine yourself putting a pin on the location in your imaginary common ground space, claiming that space for yourself. And notice how you now have access to, in this space, to everything you want to share with others or not share with others. Allow yourself to eliminate in that space anything you don't need to deal with. And now for a moment, shift your awareness back to your own body space located in your heart. Just do a comparison between your personal space and the transpersonal space and see how they mirror each other. And just see that you are always anchored in your heart, in your personal space. And you always can have a common neutral ground space on demand by just establishing it when you want. And we're going to let your full awareness come into play where you see that there is a space for yourself and there's a space for your connections with others. And we're allowing both of these awarenesses to be part of your general being right now. And the goal is when you're communicating with anybody else, just imagine speaking from the common space, not your personal space. This will keep you clean and tuned in to what's going on in the relationship. If you keep your attention on others in the common space, they will energetically connect to you in this space and not in your body. It'd be great if they didn't need to objectify you. While this may seem to create a sense of separation, it actually reduces any enmeshment and confusion because you're connecting all the dots up in your consciousness. Just think of your body as having its own field with its own boundaries of energy, time, and space. Some would say that's your space of autonomy. And that you don't need to compromise these boundaries for any reason. So you can imagine starting a common neutral ground and inviting a person to share the common ground pretty quickly because all you're doing is you're focusing outward and establishing the space and then connecting to them. And in the common ground space, we don't have to react to expectations, conditioning, defenses, or demands. We have choices. We don't need to deal with roles. We can see everyone as equals. This gives us permission to let go of all their projected conflict, or just keep it in their side of the common ground. So that you're always free to operate in a way that will be autonomous and equal. And we don't have to deal with their stuff. In effect, we become impervious to manipulation or any kind of defensive distortion. check out what it would be like in this moment to have more creative flow with other people in your life. Just imagine having conversations with people where you didn't have to worry, you didn't have to be tense, you didn't have to be protective. Because you can let everything be handled in the common ground. You can actually relax in the common ground. And check out what it would be like to operate with others without friction or conflict. And all this requires is maintaining a common ground with a sense of abundant energy, time, and space. That's the source of our wisdom. When we interact using our creative flow, some people will think we are gaming them because of our smoothness. And let them wonder. Just notice that the more they try to throw you off balance and you just maintain your humor, your joyful, calm demeanor, that you are at choice. People can either react or respond to you, and you'll appropriately engage them. We don't have to take anything personally. Just notice if they're trying to control the situation, it just means that they haven't experienced much control in their lives and they're doing it out of fear or desire or self-importance. Allow yourself to preserve your own energy wherever you are not engaging people by closing down your common neutral ground when it's not necessary. Just notice how you can set up a common ground very quickly after you become acquainted with this process. It's a matter of your intention. And your capability of manifestation is completely under your control. And just consider the common neutral ground as your way of creating an equal connection, where you decide how you want to respond to people based on your values and virtues. The goal is to treat others as you would like to be treated. This does not mean that you let anybody discount, deny, or demean you. The appropriate response may be just to move on. But the real opportunity is that common neutral ground facilitates creative interactions and consciousness so that we can get things done easier. And now I'm going to have you come back to the group. Slowly stretch your arms and legs. And open your eyes when you're ready. Bring yourself to full alertness, where your natural aliveness sparkles. And as you come into energetic connection with yourself, rebalance your attention and direct some energy to the group. Some would say this is your opportunity to do a little common ground. And you can turn on your screens, and anybody have any questions? Okay. Well, it's okay. We can accept that.
I can
Moving
say
ahead
that.
here.
I was just gonna say it's nice to feel the common neutral ground. And just by having the intention, it opens things up. I almost want to say it creates more energy.
Well, it creates more, it attracts more
Vibrant.
control of the energy you have. What you're doing is when you're focusing on the energy, it attracts more focus, and then you feel more energized because you weren't calling forth and directing your energy much before. So if you think about it, you're giving all your energy a wake-up call. You know,
Yes.
hey, we're going to go this way. Okay, we're going that way. That's good.
Yeah, giving it direction. I struggle with when to flick the switch and remember to jump into that mode. And I need the little Larry on my shoulder yelling at me, "Hey, coming to the ground."
Okay, well, I'll project a little Larry on your shoulder to help you out with that, you know? I'm sure between us, we can figure out how you'll remember. You know, as soon as you get slapped down by somebody, you go, oh, wait a minute, I got to get common ground here, man. Or you get run over. That's another one. You get run over. Oh, forgot about common ground. You know, so we do learn, The first situation, whenever you're in problems, the common ground works best in problem relationships and also in the best relationships. I'm okay about the middle ground, but you know what? The middle ground isn't where you get the high payoff situations. You get the high payoff in the problem areas because you're able to manage it appropriately without losing all your marbles or your energy. And in the high end, you get opportunities to connect with people and bond with people in extremely deep ways. So those are where the real nuggets of gold are. But you know, we learn just because we're not getting our experiences mirrored. You know, if we had somebody that was just monitoring our life and being an observer of us, we would grow more. Why? Because we're not even paying attention to what's working and not working with us. If someone who's there reporting to you, oh yeah, these things you did here weren't working, but these things over here you are working, and having a partner around, it gives you a way to pay attention to those things easier. And they go, yeah, I saw that didn't work for you. Oh, I saw that didn't, you know, but having them there confirms your reality about it. So either you're going to have to find a really good observer around you that you're doing common ground with a lot, because if you do that, you're going to grow enormously. Or the other option is that you can just have a number of people around that are your test cases, you know, and you keep trying out new things. And this is usually an artisan approach. You see what works and you keep working it with different people. And then you say, wow, it's much easier to do this with this person than do this with that person. And then that opens up the door to having these unique things happen, which is great. Thanks, Patrick. Angela.
Oh, okay. I had something interesting where I realized in the beginning of the process how much of my family I have not in a common ground at all. So that was very interesting and helpful to say, oh, wow, everybody move over here. It might take us a few days, but
you
even
might have
ancestral lines.
You might have to invite them in. You know, just think about it as an invitation. When you're with them, you don't have to say anything to them. You can just think it and see what they do and how they respond to you. If they're sensitive to you and they're close to you, they will go, oh, okay, she wants me to connect with her more. You can ask that too. You know, I really would like to have a connection with you. I really would like to share some awareness with you. I really would like to be present with you. What can we do to increase that? And boy, that may be enough to kind of wake them up to the fact that you're paying attention to that.
It's also really valuable as well, I think, to understand that I have a responsibility where I meet my people and where I connect with them.
Yes.
That, you know, that if I have that awareness and I'm not operating out of my own conditioning, that there are new possibilities for us. That's pretty cool. Thanks, Larry.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm gonna keep working it.
Okay. You know, here's the thing I just want to say, you know, I've been talking about common neutral ground for a long time, but I think this class gives you the reason why common ground is important. People are losing so much of their energy pursuing projects that go nowhere because they have no deeper connection with the people they're working with. And if it's not working, we need to figure out why it isn't working and give it room to work. And this is a whole diagnostic process of what's working and not working and why it may not be working. This class is a real eye-opening experience to all the ways that people try to relate to us, and we may not be receptive to them, or we may not be able to respond in certain ways. And when you understand what the possibilities are, you start going, oh, I could probably do that. It's just that you never thought of doing it that way, or you never imagined it would be wanted by the other person. And yet there are many ways, and we'll talk about many ways to connect. Like we could connect this through movement. We can connect through just thought. We can connect through passion. You know, there's multiple avenues here that people can use. And they could also combine them. Okay. Anybody else have anything else here? Questions?
I have one that I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's a curiosity. So if I'm doing the common neutral ground with people and I'm just doing it, like I'm not telling them or inviting them verbally, like people that I don't have regular relationships with or something, is there like a magnetism or something that draws them to it?
Yes, and I was trying to say that earlier. You putting attention on something means that they're going to be attracted to the attention. Now, if that doesn't work, what you can up the gradient, you can use all the desires. So there's attention, acknowledgement, acceptance. Those are the three basic ones. Then there is admiration, adoration. Then there is the really top ones, availability and appreciation. So you see there's 7 different desires there you can put into the common ground to get them to respond to. Wow. Now, you know, see, there's this stuff is, there are so many layers to this and so many different things you can try out doing that. I've been playing with this for years, and it is amazing how powerful it is, you know, at just organizing your universe. So anyway, you get the idea of what I'm saying right there. Did I answer your question, Sarah?
That's so cool, because I can feel into like where I do that sometimes without a comment, like, or just sort of instinctively, like a little half common ground, or when I'm really present with people and I'm really open, and I witness this like energetic shift in them, and they just like relax.
Yes,
and
they're dying to have a better connection with you, and so you're giving them an opportunity to have it in a real balanced way. Now, I'm going to say to you that people will start asking you, what are you doing? They're going to start asking you, like, how is this working? I don't seem to have any conflict with you. You know, they'll go everywhere, you know, with that. And so you start sharing common ground principles, you know, oh, you know, when you do this, I know you're doing this and I know you mean this, but you're actually producing this. You know, I know you want this, but you're not allowing yourself to have it. So and it's all obvious by like in the desires they're using, the approaches they're doing, the conflicts they're bringing to the fore in the common ground. And they don't even realize they're doing that. So I didn't say this to you, but you'll be able to recognize the patterns of the conflicts that you're doing with at any one time. I just gave you a little bit of the ideas of the patterns, but you begin to recognize that. Why do you think I can just look at people and go, oh, they're doing a 4.6 on their idealization scale? Well, it's because I'm using common ground. And they've got a blinking red number above their head. You just go, okay, that's it. Okay, I'm just taking your word for it.
That's so funny, like a little icon, like a little
Exactly. Okay, so
is this why people will reveal the things that they often hide? It's like they feel safe in the common ground.
yes. If you use common ground in a fluid way, they'll find themselves revealing things that they may not feel comfortable revealing if they thought about it. And what's really happening there is they're feeling seen, and they're opening it up, and they absolutely want to be seen. But on the other side, they're afraid to be judged.
Oh, they'll even say, sometimes I'll say, oh, thank you for sharing. And
Yes.
they'll even say, I didn't feel like you would judge me.
Yes. And by the way, that's also an indication of consciousness, because what good is judging people? Judging thing is like a whole old pattern of humanity, and it doesn't really go anyplace good. So let's just cut it out. So my point is when you affirm people, and by the way, you can also affirm people, and this is going to an extreme, but I'll give it to you. Let's say somebody's murdered somebody, right? And you could judge them for being a murderer. Well, no, at that time of their life, they did a terrible action, but that doesn't mean they're any less of a human. We tend to throw people out completely, rather than see the nuances of a situation. And so if a person said to me, well, this is what I'm learning, I would be as amazed as anything, but I'm amazed because that person, with all the judgment they have about themselves, is still trying to learn, still trying to grow. And they don't know what their life's going to end up being about. Okay.
Thanks.
Moving ahead. I just wanted to let you know, I have a little process in here for you to do a common ground with yourself. And this is just a thing to start with. Why? Because as I said earlier, you need to kind of resolve some of the conflicts within you. And if you do that, it makes it much easier to hold space for other people. You can't hold space well with other people if you're in fear of your own judgments, or if you're in, I can go through a lot of these scenarios, but let's not do that right now. But let's just imagine that we want to have flow with ourselves, and we want to have a joy in our own process, our own creative exploration. If we do that, it's easy to invite others to come into that and play with us. Okay. So we are doing a 12 class series starting next week on Thursday nights. And these are the titles of each of the classes. As you'll notice, this isn't like what we've done before in Common Ground. We're expanding the process, and we're giving people a lot more navigational tools for understanding what's going on around it. So if this happens and this happens, it's because of this. And you can start looking for that and unpack it. So people can actually start building their conscious in a very expanded way. And they can bring order to their life because they're unifying themselves in their consciousness. Any questions about that?
Anna has a question.
This seems like almost like a fantastic class to really enter into this work, or as well as creating change in their life in general.
Yeah, because what this does is unpacks people's ability to be with themselves.
Yes, like it really dissolves defensiveness.
Yes,
and all of that
it points
stuff.
out all the places where things are not
Uh-huh.
working.
Yeah.
And because they're not working, what do we have to acknowledge in ourselves? And if we have compassion for ourselves, that was what earlier, we were talking about. If we have compassion for ourselves, then we'll give ourselves space to heal it. And so in a way, it diagnosed where we need to heal ourselves.
This is like giving ourselves love because we're
It
giving
is.
ourselves the space.
Yes, so it's really parallel the other class, but this is the technology of conflict. The other class is the technology of being. How do we be? This one, it does get to the being, but it gets there through acknowledging what's so. Okay.
I think it should be one of the basic classes you teach.
It-
Even though I
it-
haven't taken it yet, I think this
Yes.
is one of
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to unify everything that we're doing into simpler ways of accessing it.
I love this one.
Okay. So the class logistics, Sandy, do you want to go through that?
Sure. Class Logistics, a 12-week course on Thursday nights, September 2nd to November 18th. We start at 6 p.m. Mountain Time or Mountain Daylight Time at this point, and we go till 9 p.m. It's co-led by Larry Byram, Sandy Jakewith, and Tom Paggiano as a Zoom webinar. It's $395 for the 12-week course, and you can sign up on higheralignment.com. Not only do we have the Thursday night classes on Zoom, but we will also be sending out recordings, including a video recording, an audio recording, and a copy of the slides that we use during class, so that you have those to go over whenever you want. And you can participate in whatever way or the degree that you wish to participate.
Yeah, we're not sticklers for you being in any particular framework. People show up as they want, and we're great with that. We're not here trying to enforce anything. Okay.
Larry, Debbie's asking if there's going to be a study group for this class. And I don't think that we'd really discussed that yet, Debbie. You want to tell us what your thoughts are on that?
In our last class, the last time I was able to take a class, we kind of had one other time during the week where we just sat together and kind of processed what we were working through from the lecture in our activities. And I found that really helpful.
Great.
So maybe debriefing group is a better, I don't know, maybe I'm using the wrong name. I just thought that's what we called it.
I get it. So we'll find out if the class wants that. If the class wants that, we'll consider having a few people lead that. And that would be a good thing, Debbie, and I agree with you. At the time, it was a good thing and it really worked because people wanted to go through those classes in a very deep way. I'm not sure we've established that how important the common ground is for people to know they want to do that up front. That's my only concern right now. I think that they're going to get a lot of opportunities to explore this in this class, and it's going to be fairly experiential. The real opportunity is going to be acknowledging what you're learning. So maybe that is an opportunity to do some kind of debriefing where people are acknowledging what they're learning is a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you even did this with a few people, you would get enormous practice in being with each other. That would be a great thing. One of the things I was going to say is that this class is really about getting to a place of presence. And so in a certain way, it's like stripping away the way that we've shown up in the past that really hasn't worked for us. and not be so distracted by things. So it's sort of like a meditation process, for people. And in that way, if people could gather in a space holding framework, it would allow a lot more forgiveness to occur within the group. That would probably accelerate the process a lot.
Larry, Ty had a question that kind of tied in with Debbie's. He says, you want to know, did you say there will be more interactive parts practicing the CNG? Is that?
Yes, there will be
by
very
Linda?
interactive parts, and we'll be practicing common ground in at least 2 hours of the process. Yeah. We have some particular things. We'll have about eight slides in the front. Then we'll have a visualization. Then we'll have practice 1, and we'll try to get to practice 2. And we'll see how well the practice 1 goes. And the practice 2s will be a little bit more complicated. But it'll be an opportunity also, if people want to do these with their friends, they'll be able to do them with their friends and practice them that way. So there's a lot of ways in which to expand this and to use it in your life.
Ty might want some homework. Would you like some homework, Ty?
What about the weekend play shops? Like we did that one of the last courses.
Yeah, the play shops are, let me just tell you the difference. The play shops, what I'm doing is I'm getting used to people exploring the process. And what we were doing there was not dealing with the content. We were dealing with how people hold space and practicing that. That's really what we were doing. And also we were getting clear that people have different creative energies, and they were practicing that, exploring that. This class it's more about giving you insights into how do you make it better? How do you make your relationships better? That's really what this is doing more. So one of the things is that, you don't realize it, but if you're not holding enough space for yourself, you're ending up making demands on your partner that they conform to you. Anybody notice themselves doing that in their own relationships? I bet I have a few people that would admit that. And the interesting thing here is that it doesn't take much to teach you how to hold that more space. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give you tools that actually change the way you perceive your consciousness. Does that answer your question, Ty?
Will it help with discipline too?
Well, in a way it will, because you'll know when you're not doing it, how much you hate it when you're not doing it. Because right now you're calibrated to the pain and you're not calibrated to the joy. But if you had enough joy, you start comparing the joy to the pain and you say, wait a minute, I want to choose more joy. And then you wouldn't think it's just normal to have all the pain. That's what most people are doing in life. They're just dealing with the pain of relationships the way they are. They're dealing with the fact that everybody's mostly codependent, and they don't even know how to get out of that. By the way, the common ground is one of the best ways to heal codependence. Why? Because we don't feel we need to define ourselves in terms of other people in a common ground. We're not doing that. It's very cool. And by the way, we're not forcing anybody to do that. We're just giving you exercise to try this out, try this out, try this out. And every night we have a different thing we're trying out to change the dynamics of how you're perceiving your own consciousness. And what happens is now you have tools. You have different tools to use in different situations. And every night we tell you how to use that tool to support your interactions with people. Okay. cool. Wow, I think we've completed everything. We've definitely gone the full time. Anybody have any final things before we complete? Oh, I will say one more thing. We in the this is the mission of the organization on both the inward and outward levels. And then we have, for the people that are interested, I have 6 more slides, more about personality differences. If you're interested, you can talk about how these things show up in your life and go through them. So there's more content in there if you're interested. Okay.
So Larry,
yeah.
In order to close this out, since you mentioned it earlier, why don't you talk briefly about how to close out common neutral ground so that we can all do that tonight as we end class?
Okay, so what we want to do is, first of all, we want to connect into our hearts and just imagine pulling back our energy, if you need to, in the heart. And you could also just send it down into the earth. You could just do one of those 2 things. And the reason a lot of people send it down to the earth is that they've got the impression of it, the crystal of it, they know, but they don't need to carry all the debris and the emotions and the unbalanced thoughts and the unbalanced sensations. All that stuff is not necessary to carry around with you. And if you do this and recycle yourself this way, you're actually having more space for yourself, because a lot of times people carry debris, their own problems and other people's problems, and you don't need the debris in the common ground. What good does any of that debris do? So just imagine pulling the common ground back into your heart, or sending it down into the earth from your heart, and then imagine releasing all your attachments to what you're doing and how you're engaging that person, because you're complete. Okay.
So Larry, would you add maybe just for a moment, momentarily, just getting into your stillness, your
You could do that
solitude
too.
and silence.
Yeah, those are the 3 elements that
Pull
could
back.
help you to reset yourself. Because what you're doing then is you're bringing in your creative being into your body. So stillness, silence, and solitude bring your sense of connection, and say, oh, I'm here, I'm right here, I'm right now with myself. And so the aliveness, wisdom, and awareness is amplified in that personal space, which is good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for hanging in there tonight for as long as we've gone. And I'll look forward to seeing who's interested in the class. We are also doing a class on radiant self unifying love. So some of you may be wondering what the difference is. The difference is on the radiant self unifying love is simply that we're teaching people to step out of their shadow, to embrace higher possibilities in loving themselves, and to recognize where they're limiting themselves in their lovability. And we're doing that also as a way of opening up the door to seeing that there are opportunities for people out there that they might want to connect with. So that is more of a going in that direction. What we're doing here, like I just said, was we're working on the details of how we connect to people, and are we doing a good job doing that? Okay. With that in mind, I'll say goodnight. And is there anything else, Sandy or Tom, you want to add?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Just if you have any questions or concerns, give me a call or send me an email, and I'll check in with you about the classes.
Cool. Yeah, Sandy is our person that monitors all the communications about stuff. If you have any requirements, or you need to talk to her about registering, she's the one for you. Okay, everyone. I'll say good night.
Night, Larry. Thank you.
Good night.